Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. When I first graduated college, I felt like the world was wide open in front of me. I was filled with enthusiasm, ambition, and I had this unique, well-thought-out idea for a business. The concept wasn't something I had come up with on a whim. It was the product of years of brainstorming and refining. I'd noticed a gap in my local community that nobody seemed to be addressing, a service people clearly needed, but hadn't been provided with. I spent months researching, sketching out business plans, and working late into the night to fine-tune every detail. I didn't just want to start a business. I wanted to build something that would really make a difference, and if I played my cards right, become financially successful over the long term. At first, I kept the idea mostly to myself. My parents knew I was working on something, but I didn't give them any details. To me, it felt important to wait until everything was polished before revealing it. But my older brother, well, he was always prying into my life. We've never had what you'd call a close relationship. Growing up, he was the golden child in many ways. Charming, confident, always the center of attention. I've always been more reserved, and while I don't resent him for his natural charisma, there was an ongoing undercurrent of competition between us that our parents never seemed to address. Maybe they didn't notice, or maybe they just assumed it was normal sibling rivalry. One night, after I'd spent another long day working on my business idea, I let something slip. I was talking to my brother over dinner at our parents' house, and I casually mentioned some of the challenges I was facing. I didn't even go into much detail. I just needed to vent about a roadblock I'd hit. I thought he might offer some advice, or at least a sympathetic ear. Instead, he just smirked and made some offhand comment about how a real entrepreneur would figure it out. I brushed it off, chalking it up to his usual bravado. A few months later, I started hearing rumors. Friends in our community began congratulating me on my brother's new venture. At first, I was confused. What venture? He hadn't mentioned anything to me. But then, they told me my business idea. He had taken my idea. And it wasn't just inspired by what I'd told him. It was a near-carbon copy. The same target audience, the same branding concepts, the same service offerings. Everything I had been quietly building was suddenly his. I confronted him, of course. I demanded an explanation, hoping that there was some kind of misunderstanding. But his response was shocking. He just said, "It's not your idea anymore. I got there first. That's how business works. Next time, have a password on your computer." What followed was even more painful. When I turned to my parents for support, they sided with him without a second thought. I tried to explain, to show them the months of notes and sketches I'd been working on. I laid out the timeline, showing how I'd been working on this idea long before he ever showed interest. They told me that I should have acted sooner, that it was my own fault for being slow and not making my idea happen, and that I should quit being bitter and blaming my brother for stepping up first. "You snooze, you lose," they said. My mom told me I was being dramatic and that I should just be proud of my brother for taking initiative. They accused me of jealousy, of trying to tear him down. They said I should help him with his business instead of crying like a baby. I was shocked and devastated. Over time, the tension within our family grew to an unbearable level. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every attempt I made to explain my side only seemed to solidify their position against me. They treated me as if I was the one stirring up unnecessary drama, as if I were jealous for not supporting my brother's entrepreneurial journey. Eventually, I had enough. I couldn't keep reaching out to people who didn't care to hear me out. So I stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped visiting, and stopped trying to stay in touch. And in response, they stopped too. They didn't reach out to me, didn't send a quick message to see how I was doing. Nothing. It was as though we silently agreed to go our separate ways, both sides retreating further and further until I felt like I didn't have a family anymore. I was crushed, but after weeks of thinking, I made a decision. I wasn't going to give up. I still believed in my idea. It was mine after all. So I started from scratch, reworking the concept, changing the branding, and finding a way to differentiate myself. I was determined to make it work. The early days were rough. I worked day and night, didn't have any social life, but I had a dream. And slowly but surely, it began to pay off. My business grew, not in an overnight explosion, but in steady, meaningful steps. I was finally doing what I had always envisioned, and it felt incredible. I didn't just rebuild my idea. I rebuilt my confidence, my sense of self-worth, and my independence. Then, 6 years later, out of the blue, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find my parents standing there, smiling. I hadn't seen them or heard from them since they cut me off, so I didn't understand what they were smiling for. Because for me, the sight of them brought back a flood of emotions, hurt and anger. I had no idea what to expect. Part of me hoped even, that they were there to apologize. But no, they had come with a very different request. Apparently, my brother's business had taken off quickly in the first years. With his charm and natural salesmanship, he made a big splash early on and started living large. He bought flashy cars, threw extravagant parties, and indulged in a lifestyle he couldn't sustain. But his lack of experience and reckless spending caught up with him. The business started to falter, and after a series of bad decisions, it went under 2 years ago. He didn't stop the lavish spending, though. Instead, he spiraled into gambling and drinking. Now, with debts piling up and no steady income, he was in serious trouble. My parents explained that they'd been helping him as much as they could, but they had run out of money. They were desperate, and they had come to me, after 6 years of silence, asking for financial help. I listened to their story with disbelief. They painted a picture of my brother as a victim of circumstance, someone who had fallen on hard times and just needed a helping hand. I couldn't believe they had the audacity to stand on my doorstep and ask me to bail him out, after everything that had happened. I told them no. I said I was sorry for their stress, but I couldn't do it. I wasn't going to hand over my hard-earned money to someone who had stolen from me. I reminded them of what he had done and how they had treated me. They didn't take it well. They accused me of being heartless. My mom cried. My dad got angry. They said I should have some mercy. At the end of the day, he's my blood. I told them sorry, but I wasn't going to help, and that they needed to find another solution. My mom, tearful and clearly furious, told me I would regret this someday, and then they left. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my brother and telling my parents no after everything that's happened? Honestly, I don't blame OP. His brother completely crossed the line by stealing OP's idea, and OP's parents siding with him just adds insult to injury. It's hard enough to deal with betrayal from one person, let alone having your whole family refuse to support you. After years of feeling shut out and unheard, it's no wonder OP stopped reaching out. It's not like OP is obligated to keep trying when they've shown no interest in making amends or even listening to OP's side. It sounds like OP had to protect himself emotionally, and I can't fault OP for that. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Wow, your brother's audacity is off the charts. He just straight up took your idea, didn't even try to hide it, and then acted like it was no big deal. And then your parents just went along with it? That's seriously messed up. The fact that they didn't even try to understand where you were coming from makes it so much worse. I don't blame you for letting the communication drop off. It sounds like no matter what you said, they weren't willing to see your side. It's not your responsibility to keep reaching out if they're not making any effort to meet you halfway. Sometimes stepping back is the healthiest thing you can do. This sounds incredibly painful. You were clearly working hard on something you believed in, and to have your own brother take it and your parents dismiss your side entirely must have been devastating. I can't imagine how lonely and frustrating that must have felt. It seems like your parents weren't willing to even acknowledge how much you were hurting, let alone try to fix it. If they weren't willing to have an honest conversation or even acknowledge their own role in the fallout, what other choice did you have? It's not surprising the communication stopped. You did what you needed to do to protect yourself from further hurt, and it sounds like they didn't leave you much room to salvage the relationship anyway. If my brother did that and my parents refused to see my side, I think I'd do the same thing. It's not like you cut them off over nothing. They pretty much chose him over you, ignored everything you went through, and then acted like you were the problem for not supporting his so-called success. It's tough to go no contact with family, but sometimes they leave you no other choice. It sounds like you stopped reaching out because you were tired of hitting a wall, and I don't think that makes you the bad guy. If they wanted to keep the relationship alive, they should have shown you the same respect they gave your brother. My brother and I make the same, but I'm single, so my money goes a lot further. As an aunt, I haven't minded being asked to pay for extras for the kids. I've never been asked to pay for a necessity before. They're not living paycheck to paycheck or anything like that. I'm talking about things plenty of kids don't get, expensive lessons or equipment. We've gone on vacations together because it is easier to corral the kids with 3 adults, and I will pay for upgrades for everyone for things that I enjoy. A nicer hotel or a dining experience I want to try, but I know is out of my brother's budget. I didn't think much different of offering to take them on a Disney cruise now that the kids are old enough to appreciate one. Long story, but a few things aligned at the same time for the offer to be financially feasible for me. At first, my brother and his wife were excited and said they would get back to me after determining the best time to schedule the trip. The next day, I got a call from my brother, and the mood change was immediately noticeable. They realized the price range of what I was offering and now want me to plan a cheaper vacation because the rest of that money could be put to more practical use for the family. My brother said it was insanely irresponsible to ignore his family's needs for a cruise. I said I'm not responsible for his family's needs, and it turned into a bit of an argument there. I think it's rich to come to me complaining about house renovations and needing a new car while his wife is still a stay-at-home mom with school-age kids. I support her wanting to do that, but it is a choice, one that I do not need to subsidize. The way I see it, I'm not offering him a gift of cash and demanding he spend it a certain way. I want to go on a Disney cruise, receive some incentives to make it possible, and thought it would be nice to have some family along. They can say yes or no, but I think they don't have a right to get into the financial details on my side. Like I said, I love showering the kids with extras, but I want to draw a hard line on not being a third parent when it comes to who is financially responsible for them. I think this has only become an issue because of the scale of cost, so I'm wondering if I'm seeing this from a limited perspective. Maybe I am crossing a line, throwing so much money away in front of my brother and being insensitive to their actual needs. Like if they were homeless, I would understand this being a jerk move. So I'm wondering if I'm missing something about this context, but I can't get unstuck from the fact that they have an able-bodied adult in the home who isn't bringing in any income. They're not struggling. Edit. It sounds like my sister-in-law's mother was scolding them about things being tight because she strongly doesn't want me to take them on a cruise. She thinks it will make her taking the kids someday less special because she thinks of it as a once-in-a-lifetime thing she wants to do for them. I didn't know she's been talking about taking all of her grandkids on a Disney cruise for a long time. My sister-in-law makes it sound like she got to my brother, who tends to be more practically minded. You're right, they aren't your kids. You're not offering X amount of dollars for whatever you want. You're offering, I'm going on vacation and will pay for those who want to join me. There's a difference, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. They do not get to tell you how to spend your money. You offered them a Disney cruise. This is not the Price is Right. They cannot opt for the cash value of their prize, especially since that would mean you also going on a cheaper vacation, so they can use your money for their personal needs. I think it is time for you to pull back on your generosity. They've clearly become entirely too comfortable with spending your money as if it were their own. If you still want to do nice things for the kids, stick to birthday, holiday gifts, and stay away from subsidizing activities or experiences that should be their parents' responsibility to budget and pay for. Your brother and sister-in-law need to learn how to live within their means and to stop seeing you as a supplemental funding source for their choices and lifestyle. Not the a-hole. I'm paying to go on vacation and inviting you to join me. If you opt out, the vacation will still be happening, just without you. If you want money for new cars and renovations, it's time to look into your wife going back to work. So, my ex and I divorced when my kids were 2 and 1. I admit I wasn't the best dad at first, and I went a few months without seeing them, which prompted her to take me to court for child support, which she gets from me every month now. Now, my ex keeps the kids, and I see them when I can. I work out of town, so sometimes I only see them 3 days a month. But I sent her money to care for the kids, and I asked her if I could have them on Father's Day, since I hadn't seen them since May 15th. She brought them over and picked them up Father's Day evening at 6 p.m. I guess she had a cookout, dinner, and presents for her husband. I mean, completely over the top. And we are friends on Facebook, and she posted pictures of him holding my kids on their vacation, or my daughter laying on his back with her head laying on top of his and my children snuggled up with him on the couch. There were a few others of him kissing her belly, and a video of him crying as she told him they were expecting a boy. She told him that he was doing a great job helping her raise the kids, and that he was the only one she knew who could build tree houses, playhouses, paint a room just to please the kids, and watch a Disney movie every night, and she loved how much he already loved his son, and that they all loved him. They all love him, even my kids. She didn't even tell me Happy Father's Day when she came over. I texted her and told her that she needed to take the post down, as I didn't like the pictures of him with my children, and that he isn't their father and that I am, and she needs to realize that. She pretty much told me to duck off. My mother then messaged her and she told my mother, "Your son and I divorced over religious reasons. He thought he was God, and I disagreed, and I see he still feels the same way." Then she blocked her. Am I the a-hole or is my ex? You see your kids a handful of times a month. He lives with them and raises them as his own every day. He's their father too. Honestly, he's probably more their father than you are, despite the fact that they're biologically yours. This situation is entirely your creation. You ran out on them for months, and now you still barely ever see them. You're jealous and acting like an angry toddler because your ex appreciates her new husband who's actually putting in the work to raise your kids. You want the same kind of praise, then you should have put in the same kind of effort. Biologically fathering a child deserves no praise, but parenting them, raising them as your own, that certainly does. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Wow, nice touch calling in your mommy to fight your battle. I can't imagine why it didn't work out with your ex. You're the a-hole. Holy crap, dude. You're barely involved in their life from the sound of it. Excuses or not. Their stepfather is clearly a great father to them, and that deserves to be celebrated, whether you like it or not. My daughter, 16, has a visible scar on her forehead. She was born with it, and although she struggled with negative attention, it used to get to her. Now she's embracing it as part of her personality. My fiance's mom, who's big on self-image and appearance, tends to bring up this scar and talk to my daughter in what sounds like a condescending tone about it, basically treating it as it's something to be ashamed of, or makes her incomplete. My fiance's mom would ask questions like if my daughter plans on getting a cosmetic surgery, and go on and on about how this might affect her future relationships and work and so on. She also does it in front of everyone, which puts my daughter on the spot and makes her uncomfortable. The other day, we were going to visit my fiance's family for dinner. My daughter didn't want to go, but my fiance insisted. My daughter said fine, but stated that if my fiance's mom brings up the scar thing again, then she won't hold her tongue this time. I told my daughter to go for it, and my fiance was shocked. We got there, had dinner, and then suddenly, my fiance's mom brought up the scar again. This time, she was talking about genetics, and whether or not any future kids we might have will get similar birth defects. I was blown away, but before I even reacted, my daughter spoke up and told my fiance's mom, "Hey, I heard they are selling lives at the shopping mall next to your home. Why don't you go and get one and stop meddling?" The whole room went quiet. I chuckled instantly, but both my fiance and her mom were stunned. Things got awkward, and I took my daughter to the car, then got into a big argument with my fiance. She said the way my daughter spoke to her mom and what she said to her was appalling, and she should be punished for it. I said forget about it. I ain't punishing my daughter for standing up for herself. She lashed out, saying this was disrespectful, and her mom only spoke out of legitimate care and concern, and that my daughter has an attitude and I should stop enabling it. We argued some more, then my daughter and I ended up going home alone, since my fiance decided to stay with her mom till we come back with an apology and proper punishment. She's still there, and I refuse to punish my daughter or have her apologize. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You are not only exposing your child to someone who demeans her over how she looks, but you're actually considering marrying a person who not only enables this behavior, but wants to punish her for it. Are you magically just hoping this improves after marriage? Your daughter deserves better. Stop exposing her to these people and putting it on her to deal with. It is well past time to put on your parent pants and get your fiancé and her family in line. You're the a-hole, a huge one actually. Why? For not standing up for your daughter. This has been a repeated issue, and your daughter finally had to say something to defend herself when she is being picked on, ridiculed, and attacked over a scar. She should never have felt the need to defend herself because her parent should have been there to defend her the first time it happened. Why the hell would you sit by idly and listen while this woman treats your child like trash right in front of you? Your fiancé enables her mother's behavior, indicating that she doesn't hold much consideration or care for your daughter. Why would you want her to be your daughter's stepmom? So your daughter can be belittled in her own home by a bunch of jerks? This has happened repeatedly. Why would you keep exposing your daughter to this behavior, especially when you know that it has the potential to damage her self-esteem? Why allow a repeated issue to go unchecked, especially for such a length of time? Why would you force your daughter to go there, knowing the environment you are exposing her to against her will? I am disgusted. Not the a-hole, but do me a favor. Drop the fiancée and her whole family and spend that wedding fund on a trip with you and your kid. I am a single mother of 2 sons, 4 male and 1 male. 4 male is on a 50-50 custody schedule, while I have 1 male full-time. Different setups due to different dads. I live in our parents' old home, which they sold to me. My sister lost her job. She's asked if I'd let her live with me in her old room, starting in March and continuing until she finds a new job in her own place. She would be willing to contribute financially, but due to her current lack of income, it won't be much. The alternative is sleeping on our parents' sofa in their new house. My sister said she felt bad about not contributing, so I said, well, if you want to help out, I could use a hand. She asked what I needed, and I threw out the first thing I thought of, which is taking 4 male to his dad's place. It's not hard, but it's time-consuming, so if she wanted to drive him out there, that would really help me. She said no and asked if there was anything else. I said I have a childminder come here for a couple hours on Friday while I run errands, so if she wanted to take over for that, it would save me some money, and she again said no, saying she wanted as little to do with the boys as possible. I then said she can't have no interaction with my kids at all, they live here, and she said that she doesn't like kids, so she doesn't want to deal with them. I asked her what she'd do if there was an emergency and I needed her to do something child-related as a one-off, and she said that clearly that wouldn't be an issue because I've been doing fine by myself so far, and that my girlfriend, ex, or our parents could help. I then said that as none of those people live with me, I would like to know that in an emergency I could rely on her, as she would be the other adult in the house, particularly as 4 male has been to A&E a few times recently. I made clear that I wouldn't take the piss, but in an emergency situation, I need to know that she'd help me. She said that I could rely on her, just not for kid stuff. I then said I'm not sure living together is the best idea, and suggested she talk to our parents again about taking their sofa. She asked if this was because of the kids, and I said it was. She said that was unreasonable, as I wouldn't expect this from any other roommate, that I was being an a-hole over a hypocritical scenario, which could very easily never happen, and that I have plenty of support in the form of my ex, parents, and girlfriend. So I don't need extra help from her, and it's selfish of me to ask and to deny her use of her old room over it. I said it's my guest room, and I need to know that if she's living with me I can rely on her in a crisis. She said it's not her job to parent my kids. I said it's also not her job to hate kids so much that she wouldn't help with her own nephews while living with them. Am I the a-hole? It's not her job to parent your kids, and it's not your job to give her a cheap or even free place to live. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Any other roommate would be paying you full rent, their share of utilities, and pay for their own food. Unless she's willing to do that, she can't claim any other roommate status. Not the a-hole. It's fine she doesn't like kids and doesn't want to look after them on a regular basis, but she did ask what she could do to help, and you gave some ideas. Also, given she is living with you, it would be reasonable to expect her to help in an emergency. Her roommate argument also isn't valid in my opinion, given a roommate would be paying rent. Honestly, it sounds like she wanted to feel better by offering to help, but never intended to do anything. I, 32 female, am getting married to my fiancé, 42 male, who has 2 daughters, 16, 14. Their mother died 4 years ago, and I met my fiancé 2 years ago. They're polite and seem to like me, but they've never really been loving or affectionate, which really hurts because according to my fiancé, they were until I came along, and then got much colder. My soon-to-be stepdaughters are complete tomboys, which is great. They keep their hair short, they hate dresses and heels and things like that, and they love all the stereotypical boyish stuff like getting dirty. I'm the complete opposite. I have 1 pair of jeans, and I hate them, but I've never tried to stop them from being who they are. The wedding is in May, and I can tell they aren't thrilled about it, but they haven't said anything about that. That is until the dress code came up. I wanted to go shopping with them for some really cute dresses. I asked if they wanted to be bridesmaids, and they said no, and they acted all confused. They said they were just going to wear these dress shirts and pants their grandparents sent them. To be clear, the issue isn't that those aren't formal enough. They are. The issue is that they are mostly black and with their short hair sort of make them look like waiters. So me and their father told them no. They have to wear some kind of dress. All the other women and girls are, and they'll stick out, not to mention the photos will look bad. They said that I was trying to impose myself on them, and I said, yeah, it's my wedding. I told them that I'd help them shop and that it'd be a good bonding experience. I would also be happy to help them with their shoes and makeup, since they don't have much experience with that. They're really angry and are threatening to make a scene if we make them wear dresses. At this point, I don't know what to do, but they are coming, and they are wearing dresses. You're the a-hole. Don't start out this marriage this terribly. How about a compromise, rompers, or a jumpsuit? Those are plenty formal and honestly super comfortable, so they don't have to worry about dresses. And they'll look dressy enough so that they don't look like waiters in your opinion. Don't force them to wear makeup or heels either. You're the a-hole. Not everyone is comfortable wearing a dress. Just because they're kids doesn't mean they should be forced to wear something they aren't comfortable in. As a compromise, I would go shopping for nice fitted suits in the color palette of your wedding. You're the a-hole. They declined your invitation to be in the wedding party, so you can't prescribe their costumes, especially if, as you say, they are formal enough. You don't approve of their gender presentation, and you don't want them to be themselves at your wedding. This is not a great look for someone who wants to be a stepmother.